Okay, we will call to order the Wednesday, April 19th, 2023 regular meeting of the Aspen Pitkin County Housing Authority. Welcome to Ward and John, the new representatives from City Council. Who's the voting member? Ward is, all right, great.
So now you're going to have to say it's
John
Ward or Ward Hounds.
Yeah, right.
Do we have to swear him in or anything?
Yeah, some kind of initiation, right? So Cindy, if you would call the roll, please.
Okay. John?
Present.
Carson?
Here.
John?
Here.
Kelly?
On Zoom.
On Zoom. Allison?
Yes, also on Zoom.
Okay, and I think that's it.
Ward.
Thank you.
Ward.
Oh, Ward. And I have you written down here too, Ward.
Thank you, Kathy.
And you're here.
Okay, first item on the agenda here is public comment. So just a reminder for public comment, we have a 3-minute time limit on public comment. When we begin public comment, you'll come to the corner microphone over here. Please identify yourself for the record. And just a reminder, this is public comment for the board, not a opportunity for discussion or response to the public comment. So with that said, who would like to go first for public comment? Please come on up. Yeah, and so just make sure the red light is on.
Red.
And just identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Ed Cross. I'm a 50-plus year resident, and I've been a resident and owner at Centennial Condominiums, and also on the Board of Managers continuously since 1990. I want to thank all of you for your work regarding employee housing. This would be a little redundant for John and Ward, but I'm going to read a poem.
Poetry.
Read a poem I wrote regarding this Centennial property. It's called The Riddle of Centennial. Built on an EPA site, desert design and funding light. What could go wrong, right? Centennial at Smuggler Mountain's base, now the centre of a legal case. Clad in superior redwood siding, beneath which rot and mould are hiding. A capital problem with funding need. The property encumbered with a restrictive deed. Centennial owners, hard-working and local, time to get loud and vocal. City councillors, too, newly elected, sympathetic to our plight, it is suspected. Please fully review the Centennial debacle, surely a worthy problem to tackle. Get the real truth, not the lies and the drivel. You need the facts to solve this riddle. I got a few additional points to add to that. We're in a legal dispute with APCHA and the city. The legal brief, which has just been represented, I feel gives a pretty good summary of our situation and our needs. I just want to make the additional points that the Centennial issue blew up in around 2009, and I believe city staff under Barry Crook took a very adversarial rather than a cooperative position with us. We supplied all the information that they proceeded to cherry pick and present a different argument than what the actual facts were. I think that's part of the reason that we've had some misrepresentations from Councillor Richards of late. Is that 3
That's
minutes?
3 minutes, thank you.
Okay, I'll finish. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the room with public comment? Okay.
My name's Randy Ice. I'm a owner at Centennial also since '09 and been on the construction committee and currently a board member. And there's 2 points that I'd like to just clarify that I find somewhat misunderstood over the last number of years since Ed talked about it. And one is that the actual problem is really an error in architecture. And I studied architecture. I've been a builder in the 70s in this valley and Vale, and also mountain manager at Sunlight. And so I've been involved in a lot of construction. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that water does not follow gravity all the time. It has a surface tension, and it gets sucked up. And in my experience in engineering of wall units, it's, as Ed mentioned, it's 3/4 inch nice redwood. It's probably not heartwood redwood, but it's number 2 redwood that they put on there. It was really nice, but it's just tongue and groove, and it doesn't have enough lap to prevent water intrusion, particularly when water continues to be put against the side of the building. You know, you can throw a couple buckets at it, you dry out, and it'd be okay. But if you look around on Centennial, you'll notice all of our western exposures and many of our southern have been emergency repaired by the $1.5 million that us owners have put into it. And we've replaced it with wall units that were engineered by the city to prevent that water intrusion. Both in the 70s, you know, I did a lot of construction, and it wasn't very common for you to put a water membrane on the wall. You know, you put your studs, plywood, and then sometimes you put tar paper on there. Occasionally you put a water vapor, which was just visqueen, and then we have you know, fire suppression, some drywall, and then the nice redwood. So behind the redwood, the water in those areas would just suck in and go down, and surprisingly, you know, rot the plates and the studs. And we were, you know, repairing stuff, and we've been still repairing stuff that we find water getting into the units. But we're pretty sure that everywhere there has us, you know, we really need to replace those wall units that were built, you know, and designed improperly. If we had a contractor we could go after that had built this, you know, we'd have a pretty good case for some retribution on that. So, and the other thing is as Ed mentioned, that the city was kind of claiming that we could all, you know, pony up and pay for this. But if you look at the costs that have been, you know, kicked around lately, which is $10 million to $13 million, because every wall unit needs to be replaced. I was even looking at the outer wall units. Okay.
Well, I mean, you can, if you want to quickly finish up, I mean.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, 10 million is kind of what's been estimated. And if you look at 92 units, just a rough pencil thing, that would mean 100,000 for each owner. And it would vary between 60 or 70,000 for 1 bedroom to 180,000 for somebody. I have a 3-bedroom. And, you know, with our capped revenue, it'd be very difficult to get a loan for that, even if a home equity loan. So anyway, thanks. I'd be happy to do more details at some other point.
Thank you, Randy. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Jason Klosik, also board member Centennial HOA. So I've been following the APCHA discussions regarding preserving the existing housing stock, and I'd like to say your efforts are commendable. And just the fact that this issue is being recognized is a relief. The seller standards, the buyback program, the grant program are all valuable and viable. So while Centennial is in dire need of options like these, it's unfortunate that our development is not allowed to participate. And as a result, 92 condos will be lost and 150 or so residents will be without a home. Our representatives spent 6 years from 2009 to 2015 meeting with numerous elected officials, city council members, mayors, county commissioners, And these conversations were full of promises of assistance and cooperation. The conversations that followed with city staff members who were directed to implement solutions consisted of them offering to help us find our checkbooks and nothing else. In 2014, the city produced a $3.24 million 6-year repair plan that would have preserved those 92 condos for the future. Our HOA offered viable options very much like the ones you are implementing today to execute the plan using parameters set by City Council, Mayor, and City Attorney to share costs amongst all the interested parties. We even presented a solution for city government to avoid providing financial support for its current housing, a precedent we were told over and over that could not be set. But unfortunately, that did not suit the desires of the city managers at the time for all expenses to be borne by only the 92 Centennial owners at that time. So it did not move forward, and costs have quadrupled in the interim. But now the clock is running out, as Centennial's condos will be beyond repair in a very short time. APCHA's stated values are also commendable. Build public trust by acting ethically and in the public interest through fairness and consistency. Communicate with transparency, with accurate information. Act with accountability using excellent financial stewardship. Your goal to ensure financial and housing stock well-being desperately needs to be met. You had willing and capable partners all along in Centennial homeowners who acted diligently and responsibly from early on, took action to address immediate issues and plan for the future. We collected dues, budgeted appropriately, and have spent huge sums to preserve their own buildings. But the extremely well-documented lack of planning, foresight, oversight, budgeting, support, and responsibility that went into the creation of Centennial was too much to overcome. We have tried every avenue and have been stonewalled at every turn. So we ask you, are we going to do what it takes to preserve our community by rescuing the affordable housing program, regardless of the missteps, mistakes, and missed opportunities that every party has contributed to? It's easier to point fingers and assign blame. And we get it. If APCHA acknowledges or accepts responsibility in any way for the condition of a property that was built without its guidance, involvement, or financial support, it sets a precedent for all the others that were, somehow. So, how do you see the situation resolving itself? We'd like to know, because no one who shares this organization's values is allowed to tell us.
Thanks, Jason. Any other public comment? Okay. Do we have any public comment? Doesn't look like we have any public comment online. Okay, if there's no other public comment, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and we will move to APCHA Board of Directors comments. And we'll start online with Allison.
Good afternoon. I would like to also welcome our new board members from the city. It's nice to have you as part of this board. I'm sure you'll just approve all funding requests as they come in, and give the staff some raises, and we can move on from there. So welcome. And also a big thanks to Diane for this morning. The Aspen Chamber Resort Association hosted a business outlook forum where she brought some housing data to our business members, and I think that was incredibly helpful to keep housing and the workforce front of mind. And I think my only question is just to confirm that there is no date for the launch of the right sizing program yet.
We've penciled in, I think it was May 15th, but that is not, that is a pencil in.
Okay.
So that's the date we're moving towards.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping us updated on that.
Thanks, Allison. Kelly?
Sorry, for some reason my video was turned off, not by me, but I'm here and hopefully you all can hear me. So yeah, I guess I would have several comments today. one, I would comment, you may have noticed in the paper today that the Board of County Commissioners is discussing sending a housing tax, potentially combined housing childhood resiliency type of tax to the ballot this fall. And I would welcome anyone's questions or thoughts about what you might like to see as a voter of Pitkin County on that effort. And also would invite your consideration to join a community committee that we will be putting together to, both advise how this gets shaped, and then ultimately, if we send it to the ballot, to campaign on it outside of your appointed roles here in APCHA. And then I would also just sort of briefly summarize some of the things that Pitkin County is working on at the legislature related to housing. As many of you all know, housing is really a topic and considered a statewide crisis by our legislators and the governor, and so there's been a lot of activity in that space. I would say we have taken great concern regarding a bill, House Bill 1255, which essentially preempts any local jurisdiction from putting a type of growth cap on development permits in their communities. Now, I think one of the things that we've really valued in Pitkin County, along with housing and our longstanding commitment to housing our workforce and our community, has also been to house people in the right places and, locations and near transit, et cetera. And we just feel that some of these bills might undermine our ability to balance how we do affordable housing, where we do affordable housing, while also protecting the rural character that we all love in this area. And so I just would flag that for you. I would welcome active engagement with our legislators from anyone who's interested on this topic, and I'm happy to share our call to action and how to connect with those legislators on this, with really a message of, listen, we understand not wanting to stymie affordable housing in communities around the state, but we also don't want to accelerate the luxury development, which is what the market delivers and which is a contributor to our workforce housing challenges as well. And that's what our kind of growth caps and growth pacing in Pitkin County allows us to manage. So I'll stop there. And sorry I'm not there in person, and welcome to John and Ward. I'm excited to work with both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Ward?
Now I have to look to see which ward you're looking at.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to all of the work that the city or the APCHA board has done previously.
Why is that good?
And I look forward to working with the board addressing the important.
Sorry, we're getting an echo.
Today.
You gotta mute something.
Try again.
Again, whoa. All right, so I'm appreciative of all the work that this board has done in the past, and look forward to working with you for the critical housing needs that our community faces, and to know that we're not alone in Pitkin County and Aspen. It's a regional and a state issue. I was, I think, on city council when we had the new IGA, and I think I would like to maybe offline work with you to see if there's additional work. I thought that we had planned on doing additional work on the IGA on governance, and so I look forward to having that discussion in the future. And since this is my first meeting, I am not sure what the position, if APCHA can take political positions, lobbying House Bill 1255 and Senate Bill 213, if it's a position of APCHA to chime in on that. Seems like just about everybody has an opinion on it, and it's really important to what I'm calling the new federalism, where state government is projecting its control to local government. So it's of supreme importance to Pitkin County and to the city of Aspen, and by extension APCHA. And I'm curious, I've been on council now going on 7 years. What is the relationship between APCHA and Centennial HOA? Is there, I think, was APCHA ever named as a party in the suit?
I think so.
And it's been
Yes.
released?
But I think that's something that you need to be updated by Tom Smith, our attorney.
Okay. So, thank you. I'm honored to be on board here. And Allison and Kelly, thank you.
John?
Yes, I am pleased to be here, part of this very important board. Probably one of the most significant boards, if not the most significant citizen board that electeds can serve on. We have big shoes to fill here. Rachel and Skippy were dedicated to housing, and I look forward to learning and listening a lot. Thanks for your patience right out front, and I look forward to making great strides in providing more housing for our community. Thanks.
John Ward?
Welcome, guys. It's exciting to work with both of you. I don't have any other comments directly about APCHA tonight, so.
Yeah. Just echo that. Welcome. I think I think this board has made some good progress, and I look forward to continuing that. Okay. We will move to the executive director's comments. Matthew.
Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Gillen, the Executive Director of APCHA. A few things I'd like to go over this evening. Liz and I attended, and Ashley
Time's up.
from... All right. We attended the Colorado Mounting Housing Coalition conference on Monday and Tuesday in Mount Princeton, Hot Springs, and that was housing people from all over the western side of the state, particularly in the mountains, and some Department of Local Affairs people and USDA. So it was a really good meeting. Got to meet a lot of very interesting people doing good work. They all look to us, we're very much ahead of the game. A lot of them are just setting up housing authorities. There were some good introductions about how to pass ballot initiatives, some good explanations of Prop 123, but most of that didn't really apply to us because we're sort of self-funded. It was a lot of how to get federal and state dollars, but it was really a good meeting for us to meet our colleagues from across the state.
Real quick, Matthew.
Yeah.
Was there any policy discussion on the stuff Ward and
That
Kelly
didn't
talked
come
about?
up specifically. It was more like the stuff that is passed in the last election cycle and how to access some of those funds.
Okay.
But that's a good question from Ward, and I'll defer to Cindy and then Tom as to whether we've ever reached out advocating on for or against a particular bill. I don't know if that would be in the form of a letter or what, but we can check that out.
I guess I should have commented. So my question, Kelly talked about hers. Isn't the governor supporting an ADU by right? Is that part of this legislation?
I believe so.
It is, but there's no deed restriction on it. It's a growth issue, I think, kind of promoting growth.
I mean, I have a
I was
comment.
taken out of the rural resort category last night during amendments.
Really? Okay. I mean, I have comments from a lot of, longtime builders, a lot of guys that I've worked with in Aspen have been here a long time. And we've lost, their comments are, we've lost a lot of those little hole-in-the-wall places that
Right.
people lived in, that worked in, that I would consider ADUs. We have some probably in the West End that maybe aren't rented today. Owners build them and then don't use them. But to me, the ADU is a great solution. It helped me finance a house in Willits when I bought a home down there. But it also added housing and for the exact staff that we're talking about, right? People that are going to be ski instructors and lifties and service members of our community, and maybe they're not here permanently. A lot of them might be, but I like the idea of the ADU by right thing. But
Well, we had ADUs here decades ago, and there was no requirement that they be rented, so most of them weren't.
yep.
Kelly? did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I would just comment on that yes, Ward, I do think it can be a good strategy where in economies where people can benefit from additional income. I don't think that's why ADUs necessarily get built here. And I know that like the county had gone through the task in the not so far distant history of actually calling the list of sort of registered ADUs that APCHA had to see if they would house, you know, even county employees or sheriff's deputies with little to no success. So people who have ADUs, they got approved to build ADUs, they got some development permissions associated with that promise to build an ADU, has not delivered housing meaningfully up here anyway.
I thought that was a part of the building code at one point too, where you had to build an ADU.
Yeah, you could do an ADU, you could defer mitigation if you're a working resident, or you could pay cash in lieu.
Right.
Also, if you wanted additional FAR, you could do that, but in most cases,
there
you
was no
still did not
requirements to
have to
rent.
require to be, or there was a requirement to rent it out, but there was no cap. So they would ask a phenomenal amount of rent, and of course, nobody could afford it, so.
So sorry to sidetrack.
No,
Kathy.
that's great conversation, and we are actually on a project to make sure we know where all the ADUs and we call them scattered sites, and we're cross-referencing that with the Pitkin County assessors and our own databases to get them into HomeTrek, and that is much more complicated than it sounds. It's really been a lot of work, and we have a contractor we've hired to do that, and we're hoping to see results this summer, and then it'll be a question of us following up with those ADUs to see if there's anybody in them, because if there is somebody in them, they should be qualified through APCHA. So it's a much more complicated process than it might sound, involving a lot of different databases and then actually following up with the homeowners. But we are doing that, so we'll see where that goes. And so I'm just going back to my list, and then we had a tenant coffee last Tuesday, April 11th, for the ACI and Truscott residents, which was a success. We had the APCHA staff available for them, and we had, I think it was about 20 people stop by for coffee and a chat, and we were following up on some of the issues they brought up. But it's really part of our overall efforts to get out and meet tenants, meet HOAs. I always put in a plug. I'm always happy to come to an HOA board meeting, introduce myself, and talk to people what's going on. We are writing the next version of the newsletter, which we hope to get out by the end of April. And there's a lot of great stuff we'll be putting in that, including the HOA survey, which you guys approved last week. That has gone out. I'm going to plug it again in the newsletter, and we're working to increase our interaction with HOAs with a view particularly to housing sustainability. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was the biannual affidavit, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, is up. That is the ownership affidavit, which all the owners have to say that they are still living in the unit. They don't own another unit in the owner exclusion zone, and most importantly, are still working in Pitkin County. That's a legally binding document, which we do every 2 years. And I'm pleased to say we have over 50% of people have already replied.
2 weeks?
Yeah,
How long has it been?
in a little over 2 weeks.
Great.
And then of course the first 50% is the easy part, and it's going to get
Yeah,
harder and
some
harder from
reminders.
there, harder and harder from then. But 2 years ago, before I got here, we did actually threaten a couple people with court action, and there was some strong letters from Tom, and we're perfectly willing to do that again to make sure everybody fills out that affidavit. I think that's it.
Thank you. Okay, Cindy, you've got available rental and sale units.
Do we have any rentals right now? Right now, there aren't any new rentals in the properties that we manage, but please, again, I can't stress enough to sign up for our notifications on our website. It's APCHA.org. There's a button in the middle that says notify me, and you can sign up for a lot of different notifications, so please do that. We do have an ownership, or a possibility for an ownership unit that ends next week. It ends a week from today. We had one that ended today, and I think we had about 20 or 30 people that were in that one. It was a Lone Pine unit. So please, again, if you're interested, and also just a huge reminder out there for anybody who wants to qualify, we are now requiring copies when you bid on anything, when you qualify for a rental. We need your 2022 federal and state income tax returns. So we cannot accept extensions. They were due at midnight last night, so just a reminder, if you don't provide that, we will be asking for it.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, so just pause real quick. Are there any amendments to the agenda or proposed amendments to the agenda for tonight? Okay, we will move along to the consent calendar. The only item on the consent calendar are the minutes of the April 5th, 2023 regular meeting. Any discussion or additions, subtractions, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Now, John did that?
I seconded it.
Is the
Ward
voting
did
member only?
Well, I
Okay,
think,
yeah.
since I wasn't a participating
Right.
member, I don't think that I can vote on the minutes.
So we can we'll put you down as an abstain because of that. So I need two of or somebody who's on Zoom or you two to make the
I
motion
don't
to
know if you
approve
can
it.
hear me. I think our videos all got turned off again, but we are here, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Thank you.
And I can second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
And because it's Zoom, it's a roll call vote.
okay. Allison,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
John
Ward,
Yes, ma'am.
Carson,
Yes.
and then Ward, you're going to abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. We will move now to the HomeTrek first quarter presentation. Andrew Miller.
Good afternoon, and welcome, John and Ward. I got to meet you very briefly this morning.
Doyle.
I'm right here.
John Doyle.
John,
It's gonna be like
I
this.
know, I'm gonna.
John and Ward.
I knew what he meant.
So our previous board members have been through this presentation a few times already. So I'm going to go through, I typically do a slideshow presentation that is just a broad overview of kind of the data that happened and changes that happened within the HomeTrek database during Q1. That is the PowerPoint that was in the attachment yesterday. And then just for you two, I'll also go through the report booklet real quick just so you can kind of see where some of that data is coming from, if that's all right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. And there we go. All right, so these are, this is just data from Q1 within HomeTrek. Starting with just inventory, I always give an overview of how the inventory's changed since Q4. We did decrease the number of units in our HomeTrek database from 3,137 down to 3,134. It was a net decrease. We did add one unit into HomeTrek that was not previously listed, 75 Champaign Lane. It's a CDU on 82 if you're heading out of Aspen right before you get to Snowmass Canyon on the right side. I think it was built 2 years ago-ish.
I believe so.
So that had not been in our system previously, and so we had someone come in to apply for it. We added it to HomeTrek because it hadn't been in a previous system that had been migrated over to HomeTrek previously. And then why it was a net decrease, there were actually 4 units that we had not previously caught as duplicates. I don't know if you know the addressing in the AABC, but it can be very confusing. And so I had 4 units at 417 Pacific Avenue, E through H. Those are the actual units in the assessor's database, but we also had them as 417 AABC E through H, and no one had caught them until I was doing a cleanup on the Pitkin Park Place subdivision there, just in some cleanup of the data. So those had been listed in the inventory before, but are no longer listed. I moved any documentation from 417 AABC over to 417 Pacific Avenue for each of those units. Looking next at applications or qualifications that came through. In Q1, we had 354 approved and denied applications. And just as clarification on that, again, that means they've gone from beginning to end with the qualification specialist. They've gone to either approval or denied. Any that are in need more info or canceled or anything like that are not included in that account or in that count. So this doesn't include all of the staff time of what staff might have looked at. This is just approvals and denials. We did see more in Q4. We saw a decrease of from Q4 of 121. There just wasn't as many sales units in this particular one. And also typically Q4 we see a lot of applications for seasonal at Merle and Burlingame seasonal as well. Just that breakdown, we did see 73 more denied applications comparatively, but 194 less approved applications. And I do have the full breakdown on pages 5 and 6 of that report booklet, and we'll look at that a little bit later just so you can kind of see where some of those denials and approvals were coming in. All right, looking next at just a little bit more of a graphic breakdown. I'm a very visual person. So we have 4 different application types that you can do a transaction with APCHA: long-term rentals, tax credit rentals, seasonal rentals, and then sales ownership, which would be to either get into the lottery, or if it's a non-lottery unit, such as Aspen Village, that might not have to go through the lottery process. They still have to qualify with us, so they would still have to go through the application process, but not go through the bidding process for their particular unit. So this is just the breakdown of those 354 applications that we had. Vast majority of them were in the long-term rental category. Just a note on tax credit rental. There are a few different properties within APCHA or within that have APCHA deed restrictions that are tax credit rentals, but these only reflect 2 properties that APCHA manages specifically, which would be Truscott Phase 2 and Aspen Country Inn. I think 488 Castle Creek is another tax credit, but we look at them as a long-term rental. They go through the separate tax credit rental with that property management company, and then Maroon Creek Club is also a tax credit property. Again, we look at them as long-term rentals when they come through us for the application process, but they still have to go through the tax credit process with their property managers. Yeah.
Sorry for the ignorant question, but
No, that's okay.
Can you explain tax credit rental to me?
So they fall under what's called LIHTC, or low-income housing tax credits. And Cindy, you probably can explain it way better than I can, but I believe it was part of the
Well, so
It
part
was-
of the capital stack in
to be
the
able
project.
to. Yeah, thank you.
So the investor, a lot of banks buy them, buy the tax credit. You know, they go in that capital stack. The rentals are restricted significantly at the end of that for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
No, longer than that.
Well,
It's
they
30
renew them.
years.
Is it 30? Some of them are
Yeah.
20.
88, I think.
Yeah, and so the reason I'm guessing all those are turn downs probably income.
I have
is
denial
gonna-
reasons for you. Don't worry.
But it's pretty significant. I think we've had trouble leasing some of those units because of, incomes up here. People work a couple jobs, you make more than probably $38,000 a year or
Right.
something.
And you're kind of stuck and you have to be very, very careful that you follow those rules and regulations, because even if somebody's $10 over, what they can do is they can go back to the beginning of the program, take all the tax credit money, which is could be $5-10 million, where the city would have to pay it back. So we are very, very careful that because we get audited on a yearly basis. They not only audit our a random selection of our applications, but they also do site visits, and they go through the units to see if the units are being kept in decent shape and stuff like that as well. So it's a pretty rigorous program that we go through. But Truscott Phase 2, we have 2 Truscotts there. They were built with the help of what they call a syndicator, which was able the syndicator, which has been Boston Capital, I think, for both of them, got a tax credit break by providing funds for us to build these properties. So Truscott Phase 2 only has maybe about 9 or 10 years left to go. And then we have our regular category on these, and then that will kick in. So then we can go by the deed restricted category, which is a little bit higher income than what HUD requires. So they'll be a little bit easier for us to fill.
And we've asked CHAFA and HUD the same question many, many different ways, and the answer's always been the same. We really are stuck with those limits. So we had some success last summer advertising Down Valley in English and Spanish, but we haven't seen much movement. So I don't know how many units we have empty right now. Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but we're
know one
always working on
advertised
it,
is
but it's
vacant
really
right
a
now,
tough
so.
nut
We
to
did
crack.
just fill one at ACI, which made us very
Yeah,
happy.
because as soon as there's a very small population who are in our valley who are going to qualify in those income limits.
What is the percentage of AMI for tax credit?
It's about dollar-wise,
right
it's
here?
like 38,000.
I know you can't see that, but for ACI it's 50%, and then for T2 it's 60%.
And I should have also noted in my remarks that we just finished the CHAFA review last week, and we did very well. So, which I should have blown our horn to trumpet that. But yeah, they're very happy, and they love working with our qualification specialist who does the LIHTC properties. But that's a great question, John. Great.
All right, and then the last thing on this slide just to talk about is just on the graph, the light blue are the approved and the dark blue are the denied. Some of those denial reasons are being over the income limit, since we do have a category designation with them. For some properties, especially rentals, there are maximum occupancies based on property management company, however they decide to do that. So some people can be denied for max occupancy. We do require rentals meet minimum occupancy, so if they don't have minimum occupancy, they could also be denied. They might not be able to prove full-time employment here in Pitkin County. They might not be able to verify their income and assets, so we can verify what their category is against that, and then any combination of those. All right, so looking still at APCHA managed units, this would include Truscott Phase 1, Phase 2, Aspen Country Inn, but as well as Merle Ranch and Smuggler Mountain Apartments over on Park Circle. And so this is just going through renewed leases, move-outs, and maintenance requests, just so we can, again, kind of see what is happening within a small subset of our inventory, since we are the property managers of these properties, or these 5. Within Q1, we had 40 new and renewed leases that happened. There are 351 units that APCHA manages, so that was about 11.5% that our property management, both our senior and assistant property manager, went through new leases and renewals with those 19 units. We only had 3 move-outs in all of Q1. They all came from Truscott Phase 1, and 1 in January, 1 in February, 1 in March, so we didn't see a whole lot of turnover in Q1. Again, from the inventory perspective, less than 1% of our inventory turned over in Q1. And then with regards to maintenance requests, we did see an increase of 27 compared to Q4, but again, knowing that we are looking after Meralt with seasonal in there, it is expected to see an increase in Q1 on that side.
Since all 3 move-outs were on Truscott 1, is there a reason, or is that a coincidence?
I do have a move-out reason on my next slide for you.
We do ask that question.
Yeah. Any questions?
One thing, I love these updates. Thank you so much. One thing I'm realizing now that we're into a year of data in these presentations is I actually think it would be more helpful not to compare these numbers to Q4, but to compare them year over year to a Q1. I think you did a good job of pointing out that the way how our units are filled in and out throughout the year, like Q4 is going to have these spikes as we're getting into season. Spring is probably going to have more move-outs. So that feels like comparing apples to oranges, but I would be interested this time last year versus this year.
Thank you for that, Allison. Yeah, now that we have, I think I've done 6 quarters of HomeTrek reports, so I do have that comparative data that we can start looking at. You guys just missed, I did 2022 as a whole back in January as well. So if you're interested in those, I'm happy to share those reports with you.
I think that's a good
Andrea,
suggestion.
can you have this
Allison.
in the full document? Not just an increase of 27 maintenance units, but like knowing the total. Like, is 27? Was that a 30% increase? Do we usually get 600 and we got 27 more, or did we get an increase because there was none last time and 27 this time? I think that's a little help. Like the percent increase or decrease is also helpful.
Sure, and in this case, there were a total of 164 closed maintenance requests in Q1, which is an increase of 27 comparatively from Q4 2022.
Q4. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. All right, again, looking from a more graphic standpoint, this is the breakdown by each of those properties, just so you can see where those renewals were happening or new leases were happening, and then where those move-outs were happening. Move-out reasons, we had one person who transferred units, and then we had a job change, and then another one that someone moved out of state. Any questions on that one? But please, I like to move fast through these, so please, if I'm moving too fast, let me know. All right, so going to, this is kind of my last one about APCHA managed. These were units that had come available during Q1 that we managed. Now, how our regulations are written for APCHA managed rental properties, it is stated that we open it for a certain amount of time. It's not first come, first serve. Once you're on the list, we then take into consideration who has the longest consecutive work history in Pitkin County, and from there we would start the qualification and offering process. So when we say there were 56 people who submitted interest on the Category 2 studio at Truscott Phase 1, that does not mean all 56 went through the application process. It just means within that time frame that this unit was available or open for submitting interest. That's how many we received. We typically can fill units that are Category 2s and 3s pretty easily. In fact, both the Truscott Phase 1 studio and 2-bedroom were both filled in March, and they had submit interest in March, so we filled those very quickly. Do you know, Cindy, then, did we fill this ACI
We
unit?
filled one.
Okay.
ACI.
When I asked Nicole, as I asked our property managers on Monday which of these units had been filled, and only that ACI 1-bedroom was still filled. Do you know, was it 324?
I'm not 100% sure. I just
Okay.
know Nicole said we've got somebody approved for it.
Okay.
So
So it's possible that all 3 of these are filled, but we have had some pretty long swaths, especially when we look at these income. When we look at 2-person or 2-bedrooms, they have to have a minimum of 2 people. So in a Truscott 2-bedroom, finding a household of 2 that makes under $56,400 can be a challenge in this valley.
And we're still working, just to let you know, we're still working off of 22 incomes.
Yep.
We have not gotten, we have to wait till HUD comes out with the new rates for 2023. They usually come out around the first part of April. They have not come out yet. So we're still waiting on that information. And as soon as we get that, we're hoping that it's gonna at least go up a little bit, so that's gonna help us possibly fill some of these units that have remained empty for so long.
It's just
It's
frustrating
maddening.
to have
Oh, it
such a
is.
need and have vacant.
I mean, it's perverse, but
Yeah.
Just as a comparison, since we talked about AMI, 50% for ACI and 60% for T2, our Category 1 units are based off 50%. Category 2 is based off 85%. So ACI is Category 1, basically. I think they get a higher asset cap for ACI. Compared to Category 1?
Assets don't matter for, yes, because the category on ACI is actually Category 3. But, so if somebody goes, because when you first qualify, you have to qualify under their incomes. And believe it or not, after you're first in there, every other year after that, you could make a ton of money and stay in it. the housing authority, along with the city, we placed an actual deed restriction on on Aspen Country Inn and on Truscott, so that there is still a cap that we have, and I believe ACI is category 3. So once somebody moves in, it's getting that initial household in at that low rate. Once they're in, they can start to make more money, and they can go up to category 3, and we can still keep them in there. So it's just that initial application, that initial household, getting that initial person in at that. It's weird how CHA, how their units work, how that program works.
Yeah, with the need for housing and vacant units, is there any flexibility within the program to move those units up a category?
Well, we have them at category 3 now. It's getting the households in there initially. We cannot go by our categories. We have to go by what their income limits are that are set by HUD and for Pitkin County. And they are just very, very low at the 50%. We at Aspen Country Inn was at one point in time 40% of AMI, and it was even harder to get. Well, actually, when we first leased these up, we leased them up pretty quickly. Aspen Country Inn also has a priority for seniors. So anybody who worked here prior to retiring or is a senior now has a priority to move into Aspen Country Inn because it's a senior priority project. I can't tell you how many seniors in there. I don't know if it's basically 50-50. There's 40 units at Aspen Country Inn. It's a mixture, I think, it could be about half and half. I'm just not 100% sure, but we could probably figure that out for you if you wanted to know that.
In the category ratings, is it people are not qualifying because they're making too much or too little?
Yes, too much.
Too much.
They're very, very low.
All right, I'll move on. Moving into sales, lotteries, and bids. So we only had 6 units that listed for lottery in Q1, one less than Q4. But we only had 140 bids on those 6 listings. There's a lot of contributing factors to that. It could be the price of the unit, it could be the size of the unit, it could be the location of the unit, it could be the category or the cost associated. Maybe it has really high HOA dues at it and people aren't interested in it. During Q1, we only ran 3 lotteries based on how things had come available. There were no complex winners out of those 3 lotteries, and 0 of those winners were current owners. Average work history of those 3 winners in Q1 was 20 years. That is down from Q4, which was 22 years. So that's just telling you how long you may have to be working here and in terms of what your chances are. And then the last bullet point, we had 13 units close during Q1, 2 more than Q4. The average sales price of those 13 units was $594,313. What I will say, though, on that, out of those 13 units, 6 of them were RO, 4 which sold for almost $1 million, so that is going to skew that average. In that report, booklet, somewhere page 11 through 18, we'll look at it. I do break down by category what the average price is per category because that's a little bit more fair assessment. But just looking at the 13 units that closed, it was almost $600,000 for those units. And then last slide for the quick presentation. This is out of those 140 bids that we received in Q1, a breakdown of where those bids went to by the unit's bedroom, by the unit's category, and then by the applicant's household. So looking at that first graph up there, there were 3 units that were 1 bedrooms, and 84 of the 140 bids went to that. So almost 60% of the bids went to 1 bedrooms. But again, taking into consideration 3 of the 6 units were 1 bedrooms there. With regard to category, most of our bids went to category 2 units with 65 out of the 140. There were 2 units there, but there were also 2 units in category 4, and we only had 23 bids on those category 4 units. And then looking at the last one, number of bids by household size, how this is structured. I know it's a little hard to look at on the first glance. The one is the number of adults, and then two adults, and then the second line down is the number of dependents, so either 0, 1, 2, or 3 dependents, and then how many bids within that subsect. So looking at 1 adult, 0 dependents, we had 108 bids out of the 140 bids.
So I'm trying to reconcile some math here. So you had multi-adult households. You had 13 total bids between, doesn't matter the kids, but just two adults?
Say that one more
time. Is
time.
that the number?
No, it'd be the 9. So 2 adults, 0 dependents had 9. 2 adults, 1 dependent had 3.
Oh, there it is. I didn't see that. I was
No
thinking,
worries.
okay.
Sorry, I know it's a little hard to see.
And we don't know
So it's
what
22.
room size these households were bidding on, do we?
Yeah, that was the next
Like-
question for me
Okay,
too. Was,
Not in a simplistic way, because we don't restrict household size bidding on units. It's based on category. They can bid at their category +1. All the household does is it assigns a priority based on our regulations of whether they meet minimum occupancy, or if it's a 3-bedroom and they're 2 people, they're going to be a lower occupancy compared to.
but you
know,
had
2 adults, 1
108
dependent.
bids between 2-bedroom units and 3-bedroom units, right?
Correct, but that doesn't. Like me as my spouse and I, we could bid on a 4-bedroom
That's what I'm
house.
saying. Is
Yeah.
you know, I think it'd be interesting to see, you know, stratification of, you know, 2-bedroom units are probably bid on by a couple,
And
correct?
what we're getting per household
And then,
size.
yeah, because ultimately our goal is fill bedrooms, right?
Sure.
Well, the top, and HomeTrek prioritizes everything. So when we run the lottery, everybody knows where they are in that. But if you're a single person going for a 2-bedroom, you're gonna be behind everybody who's a 2-person household. So but you're gonna be able to see, maybe they'll get down to number 35.
So we let a single person
So-
bid on a 2-bedroom unit?
You do, but again, they're way down, they're not the top
But
priority.
they could win.
So they can't, they could be offered the unit if
people win the
everybody
lottery all
above them turns it down.
How
Okay.
how
So-
our
Okay.
regulations are written is it's not a restriction that you can't unless you meet minimum occupancy. That's only on the rental side. But you are a lower priority, and everyone above you would have to pass. That is how in some
So you
cases.
can't win the lottery and float to the top. You're gonna get categorized.
Exactly.
Yes, correct. Correct. Yeah, they basically break it into subsets of where they fit within the regulation priorities based
There's
on that
20
unit size.
people with a higher priority, you're going to come in 21.
Yeah,
It's a separate fishbowl entirely. I mean,
Correct.
essentially, of,
Yeah.
of names drawn. And I'm really worried about I guess not worried. I'd love to know if it's the inverse, where we have, 2 parents with a kid bidding on these 1 bedrooms, just hoping anything will keep
Get
them
some.
here. And so, yeah, I was curious about the math on the other end of that spectrum.
Okay. Yeah, I can pull that for next quarter.
because they are in the same priority as a single person. If there's 2 people, or even a household of 3, the single person, the only priority a single person has
Is on
is in
one.
a studio unit.
Oh.
They have a priority. If you're a household of 2, you're that second priority. So they at least, we did that on purpose because a single person didn't have a priority for anything for a while. And we changed that a few years ago, where we gave a single person a priority for a studio unit.
And just looking at some averages. Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. The averages was number of bids per bedroom, but really that's only for the 1 bedroom that has 3 units. And typically we're seeing about 20 to 30 bids per lottery currently, regardless of bedroom size, regardless of category. We did have a category 5 for 6,000 or 600,000, 620-ish, I think. And I think we only had 13 or 14 bids. It was a 3-bedroom category 5, so only category 4 and category 5 could bid on it, and it was pretty pricey. So yeah, again, it
And
really
you
is
have to have 3 in your family.
The
to
top
be the
priority.
high priority. Again, my spouse and I, we bid on that because we're category 4 and we're trying to get into something
Crossing
because
your
we're in a
fingers.
rental.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we knew I think we were number 10 or 11 because the first 10 were all 3-person households. So unless people can't get mortgages or decide to pass on the unit, we know we're probably not going to get that unit.
I think Allison's question, about the 1 bedrooms and having multi, I think that it'd be interesting because that kind of gives you a tell on desperation
Sure.
a little bit.
I can do that as a separate breakdown.
We've had households of 4 bid on 1 bedrooms.
Ooh, had somebody try to
And
live.
ownership doesn't have a maximum occupancy. We can't dictate how many people you have in your ownership unit, so that's why we don't have a maximum with regard to bidding. But rentals, the property management company can set maximum occupancies.
Okay.
All right, so that was the end of this. If it's okay, I'm going to switch over to the PDF report booklet just to kind of show you where some of this data came from. All right. So looking through this, I try to write, if you're interested, I do try to write these same takeaways on the first few pages of this, of what's kind of happened with the inventory, why the inventory moved around. So I do that for each section of the report booklet, and I kind of break it down into inventory, applications, APCHA managed, and sales. So if you're interested in that, but just looking at the breakdown of ownership units that closed, just so you can kind of see a more realistic view of what the units closed for on an average. We didn't have any category 1. We had 2 category 2s. Their average sale price was $202,703. 1 category 3, which was $222,623. 4 category 4 units, which were averaging $308,994. No category 5 units, and then 6 category ROs for $977 and $12. Here's that same breakdown with regards to inventory, but this shows you out of that 3,134, how many are ownership, how many are rental, within that how many are detached versus attached, how many are long-term versus seasonal. In the other category, we have some units that are what we consider ownership / rental, which means you can own them, but there's in your deed restriction allows you also to rent it out to someone. It doesn't have to be owner occupied necessarily. And then those music rooms are over at Merle. Those are not livable spaces, but we do rent them out in the winter. They're used by the music school students in the summer, but in the winter we do rent them out. So they are included as part of our inventory, but they are not livable spaces. And then sorry.
What does that mean? We do rent them out, but they're not
for
livable
deadbeats.
spaces.
Meaning it's a practice room.
Yeah, they're a practice room, but sometimes somebody might be
Put a
sleeping in
sleeping
it, so we
bag in
check
there, or
on them.
what?
We check on them during the winter because it's been known that some people are actually using it to live in. So we have to check them out because people are desperate for housing. So
And then
Is
just
it the same price to
No.
rent it as a meeting space as the rest of the Merle?
no, it
No.
is much cheaper.
much cheaper.
Interesting.
I think the small music rooms go for about $200 a month.
So I'm not going to ask.
And
never mind.
they are signing a lease,
The
but
rental
it's
rate is
not
over
a
$1,000 for the unit.
livable lease.
No, I just want to know how they live. Like, they got some heat and a roof, and they hot plate, or do they go eat somewhere
That's a
else?
good
Do they
question.
do their business somewhere else?
Well, and we have restrooms that are located within that area as well.
So I guess it probably
So
wouldn't be that bad.
and laundry rooms and yeah.
What's that?
We got that going for us.
All right, gonna quickly run through some more pages here.
Oh, I love that picture.
This is that same approved, denied requalifications with a graph, but here's a further breakdown so you can see which ones were qualifications versus requalifications. We only do requalifications for long-term and tax credit, and that means you're already residing in the unit and you're requalifying to stay in that same unit. We do not do that for seasonal or for ownership because we need to look at it from a fresh perspective every time when we do those. Keep going. I'm going to go quick, so if you have questions, please let me know. This particular page is just a breakdown of the 56 approved ownership applications that came in during Q1. Just shows this is pretty typical of what the bell curve is on what I see every quarter of where most of our ownership applications are in terms of category. Most of them are category 3s here. Moving on to new and renewed leases. This is showing you where those leases happened. Again, this is in that report booklet. Where were the renewals happening? Which property? Which of the 3 months in the quarter were they happening in? How many total for that specific property? Again, this is really helpful for our staff so we can kind of see where things are typically happening and where turnover is happening. Move outs, again, we only had 3. Pretty straightforward. It was just Truscott. Next quarter, we will see a lot more at Merle because their leases all end on April 30th. Rental listings, interest by category. This is that same, what we saw in terms of where did we see the units, but this is actually showing you what units were available. Again, it's showing you what is the category of the unit, what is the bedroom of the unit, and how much interest we got on that particular.
Yeah, the Merle seasonal, with the decrease in size of the music festival, are those getting 100% occupancy in the summer?
Correct.
They want more, believe it or not.
And then moving on, this is just maintenance requests. This is a breakdown of where did these maintenance requests come from? Were they HVAC, plumbing, electrical, appliances, ground common exterior, make ready, or other? Other could be a combination in one maintenance request that our maintenance crew puts together in their in HomeTrek. A make ready is there's been turnover in the unit, so they need to prepare for the next move-in. This is the sales listings by bedroom. So this is just telling us the 6 units that were available in Q1, when were they available, and which category units available were they, and which bedrooms. So this is showing there was 1 category 2 1 bedroom, 1 category 2 2 bedroom, one category 3 1 bedroom. And then, so really was the beginning of the quarter were all category 2s and 3s, and then nothing in February, and then they were all upper categories in March. Again, just looking at it from a more minute perspective, these are the bids that came in by bedroom. And so what I did is I broke down these specific units. I could combine this if this is more helpful to combine bedroom and category, because I think it sounds like we like to look at maybe those together. Where we had a lot of one bedrooms being the most. We had 3 1-bedrooms, 1 studio, 1 2-bedroom, and 1 3-bedroom, and then this is where all those bids broke down.
I think it would be helpful if, so like, I mean, I'm looking at the 3-bedroom.
Yep.
I think it would be helpful for me if we had category and maybe sales price on there too. Like, cause I'm curious, the 3-bedroom, 13 bids. That's category 5, right?
That was the category 5. That was like
a,
620,000. Yeah. All right. Looking again, this is going to be similar, but this is just based on the category of the unit. So this is its split. I can keep them split and give you a combined, or if you're just interested in seeing a combined category and bedroom in one graph, I'm happy to do that. So it's the same information, but this is just the breakdown of where were the bids coming in category-wise.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, let me get to...
Yeah, I think address is less important than category.
Yeah.
Okay. And then actually this next one may answer, or at least get into some of that question of where you were asking, where were the bids coming from for households? So we know that the, I believe it was the Molly Court that was that category 5. Let me go back real
there you
quick.
go.
Sorry.
Yep.
I believe
Yeah,
it was.
the Molly Court that was the category 5 3-bedroom. So we saw only 2 1-person households, 3 2-person no dependents, 2 adults 1 dependent, and 6 2 adults 2 dependents.
So then that would be 8 top priority.
No, it would actually only 8. Sorry, you're correct. It would just be the ones with the dependents because they had to meet 3-person minimum occupancy.
And 8 that would fill all bedrooms.
Well, I mean,
Right.
if you assume that it's 2 adults and 1 dependent, I mean, you know, unless the adults are sleeping in their own bedroom, you think it might even be 6.
Correct. If you're looking at it from that perspective, yeah. All right, so that was household. Next one's
I
just,
think this one does. I don't know how many bedrooms each of those have, but this
Okay.
would also help. Like, this shows us two adults, one dependent, only bid on either Molly Court or Soapers Creek Road. So unless one of those is a 1-bedroom, at least we don't have people bidding on a 1-bedroom with 3 or 4.
yeah, I can pull bedroom size into this if that's helpful. All right, getting into lotteries. This is just telling you what lotteries happened when. They all happened in February. This is the winners by the household. So looking at it from the graph, I think is a little bit more helpful. But we had, out of our 3 winners, 2 of them were 1 adult, 0 dependents, and that was for a 1-bedroom. And then the other winner was for a 2-bedroom, and it was 1 adult, 1 dependent. And Cindy, I don't know the last time that we've had a lottery in which someone with minimum occupancy didn't move forward with purchasing
Right.
the unit.
It's been a really long time.
Looking just at the next one, this is on that work history. So this is just a breakdown of that work history. 11, 17, and 32. The 32 skewed it, obviously, to bring it to the average of the 20, but it is helpful data to have.
Yep.
None of them were owners. One was a free market renter, one was an APCHA deed restricted renter, and one was an other deed restricted renter. What that means is they could be renting at Snowmass with their housing program or down in Garfield County. So there's a deed restriction on their rental, but it's not with us. And again, that breakdown of were they owners? Again, so we had no in-complex winners in that one. All right, this one is really dense, and I do apologize. And this is why I don't go through the whole report booklet. But this is the all the units, those 13 units that closed by their sales price and what category they were. So again, we can see all of our RO units, those 6. The 4 that sold for almost $1 million were all at Smuggler. This Lazy Glen one did skew it down a little bit, but I believe this was
That's a
someone
lot.
who, yeah, they had purchased the lot underneath their improvement, but it's still an RO unit, so it still counts.
Little Ajax has a unit that's 975,000.
Little Ajax is the 385.
Yeah. The 975 belongs to Smuggler
Smuggler.
subdivision.
Oh, okay. Now,
Yeah, sorry, I know
They're
this one
located
could be a
near the
little hard to
tree.
read.
You know what might help on this one is to organize it by that second column, the sales price, instead of alphabetically by property name.
Okay.
So we can see if sales price, like ideally then we would have a diagonal yellow line.
Sure.
But I think will also show us some of those discrepancies of when a higher category has a lower price. That would show up in some of this plotting.
Yep.
Sorry, Smuggler subdivision, is that North 40?
No, Smuggler subdivision is over here. It's the property that's on Maple, Cottonwood, Oak.
Right below
And,
Centennial.
yeah, and Smuggler Run subdivision there's 17 category 4 units there. Smuggler Park, which is before, when you're going up there, it's on the right-hand side. There's 87 homes there, and they have an RO designation. And they actually, the deed restriction actually goes away in 2037. But you also, after the property's been on the market for 4 months, the only requirement is that you're a Pitkin County resident. You do not have to work in Pitkin County, and you only have to live there 6 months and a day, and that's it.
So these are my neighbors across the street at what we call Smuggler Trailer Court.
It used to be, yeah. But it's Smuggler Park, it used to be Smuggler Mobile Home Park, yeah.
That's a very weird deed restriction, which we're not too fond of, but that's what we have.
Isn't there one street that has a different one? Is
Yes,
it Ajax?
Ajax, and that's the Smuggler Run subdivision.
I thought we
Yeah.
were You guys, as you were closing some of this stuff, you were updating the deed restriction.
That's the whole
We
subdivision, that
can't
one.
on Smuggler Park because they're not sold through us.
That's the whole,
If they're
yeah.
sold through us, we can, and that's what we do. Anything that's sold through us, we have the right of first refusal. And we always do a new deed restriction for all the properties that are sold through us. We have gotten a couple North 40s that way because they have sold through us. So, and we changed the deed restriction from 4% to 3% or CPI, whichever is less. And they have to sell through us, which is great because then the minimum occupancy requirement comes forward on that. But like Aspen Village doesn't sell through us, Lazy Glen does not sell through us. They can if they want to, but they really 100% of the time they opt not to sell through us.
I have a question for not answering now about those types of units, the Lazy Glen, the smugglers, because they're not necessarily listed through APCHA. Do they go through the MLS? Like, would we know where they were posted as for sale?
Not necessarily.
They're typically on the MLS though.
And sometimes the North 40 sometimes will be on the MLS, and
I've seen Lazy Glen on
and I
all the
think
time.
Lazy Glen. It depends on if they put a sign up in their yard and somebody happens to be driving by and they're doing it as selling by owner.
That's what I'm
it's-
wondering, especially on the ones that, there's this time frame where you try and sell locally, which would theoretically lower the cost if we're living and working locally. But then once you pass it, you could get around that and probably price it higher. And so is there a way for them to, not really post it that publicly in order to try and circumnavigate? And again, not for right now, but at some point, I think it'd be interesting to look at those requirements.
We usually, like at Smuggler Park subdivision, they start out at a very, very high price. It just stays at a high price. And then the 4 months goes by, and then somebody comes forward who may be a Pitkin County resident for a week. And they go under contract.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it says Pitkin County resident, but it doesn't define
How long?
what a Pitkin County resident is, so. That's,
And who wouldn't want to live here for 6 months and a
yeah,
day?
exactly.
Plus.
Yeah.
So that's an easy
Yeah.
sell. Okay, thank you.
Right, that was the last slide. The rest of the report booklet, just as a note, are just where the how these reports were pulled, what filters were on them, and then there is a URL link, but it's for staff. Just as an FYI. If you click on it, it's not going to take you anywhere because you don't have credentials to get into HomeTrek. So that's all I have.
Any questions? Well,
Yes, sorry.
Do you dream of numbers at night?
Sometimes I've been working with all the biennial affidavit data. For yesterday, I pulled data for like 9 hours. So
Yep.
sometimes yes.
well done again.
Andrew, can you pull page 5 back up? I'm sorry, I didn't. I was holding my tongue to see if this was going to come back up, but you list some reasons that someone would not be qualified. Denied reasons include blah blah blah. But I would actually love a breakdown, and if it makes more sense on a larger scale, an annual scale, even if we pull it from 2022, I think this would be very helpful in some communications work that we do. If the most common reason is that you didn't have all your stuff in, or that you were trying to get into a unit that had more bedrooms than was allowed, we could do our messaging and like preemptively get people denied less if we knew what the most common reasons are. So I think not just a list, a written list, but some sort of data of what the most common reasons are would be very interesting.
Sure. Would you want that broken down by application type then too? Because it's going to vary from application type.
Okay, so like rentals, maybe they're denied for one reason, ownership
Yep.
for another kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe just and weigh in anybody else. I think unless you wanted to do a full report on just this, which obviously I would find fascinating, but I like charts more than others. Our lowest categories getting denied because they weren't fully filled out as much, and we need some outreach to our lower income workforce of where the forms are, or literally how to fill them out online. I do think we could learn a lot from if there are trends that way. I think for the next report to simplify your life if you just wanted to do rentals and ownership and even list the top 2 categories that order.
So what do you guys,
I'm not.
sorry, Allison, that brings up a question too on just denials. So if somebody doesn't qualify, they get a letter and a reason why?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a lot, in my opinion, too much TLC before they get to that point. They're given a lot of work to try and get them up to speed. I think we go a little too far helping the applicant,
Try and get qualified.
right? Because it's a huge drain on staff resources to hold handing people who say they don't have or understand what W-2 is, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're a little too nice, but we are very nice getting them to that point where we can make an assessment. So, you know, if anybody doesn't have a completed packet, we've really put in a lot of work to help them get that way. Like I said, I think we do too much of that, and it's something we're chatting about internally. But we really do work very hard with them.
I think that's why this data would help.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I really think like nipping it at the bud instead of spending time with that hand holding.
Yeah, you can send them
Yeah.
out with a list and a
Right.
packet.
Well, we have.
do.
we've tried all the normal stuff. So yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
a lot of
Happens in
people.
lending too.
Oh.
Way too much time trying to get
Incomplete.
somebody's package.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Have fun. He's flying to Hawaii.
The skiing's not very
What?
good there.
Can you make this meeting last longer then, or?
Flight's not till tomorrow. We're gonna drive down to Denver and miss though.
Yeah.
Have fun.
All right. Next item is the home repair pilot grant program, and Liz is going to be presenting this one.
I was just commenting to Liz. The timing is probably not right. We've only got her down for
We'll see. Maybe
15
we'll just
minutes, but I think it'll probably take longer than that. So I told Liz just take as much time as she
Yeah.
needs.
I know, it's really well.
So especially with
I might
John and
switch
Ward,
channels.
this is
She's
Right.
got
When I was
20
like, how
minutes
does
now
my
'cause
head
we're
go
ahead of
20.
schedule. Let's
over
go.
the
Yeah, we're
table?
early. So. And then
I mean, I know how militant the president is over here.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, let's order that 5th.
And we'll do slideshow. Okay. No, that's not right. It's my notes. It's still not right. There we go. Okay. Now it's in full gear. All right. So Liz Axberg, City of Aspen Housing Policy Analyst. Welcome to APCHA. Excited to have you here. So today I am presenting on the Home Repair Pilot Grant Program. And just for your context, I think this is about the 4th time we've talked about this as a board. So a lot of elements of this program have already undergone a lot of discussion. And today I am just going to go over the whole program again to fill you in on what the program is, what we've been talking about. Today, I also do have some additions to the program that the board talked about last time. This includes the prioritization process for the applications. And also, I added in some more information on how the application process would actually work for this as well. So the basics of this program is $5,000 grants to APCHA owners to make essential repairs on their home. And the goals of this program fall into 3 major categories. So first, testing internal processes for APCHA. So this would be maybe down the road if we were to do a larger home improvement or rehabilitation program, we would actually already have a foundation for how this would work, working out some of what works, what doesn't work, so that way we have a better chance of success for a bigger program. Second is measuring the need, what types of repairs owners need, or the cost of these repairs, who's doing the repairs, what properties tend to need more of these types of repairs. We're going to do a lot of data collection through the application process as well. That's going to inform what the needs of owners and the inventory really are down the road. And thirdly, supporting aging properties. That's probably the biggest one. And this, I mean, Aspen has one of the oldest affordable housing inventories in the state. And there's kind of a disconnect between free market construction and affordable housing owners. So we would be helping owners make much needed repairs. And along with this, we also might be able to give them the funds they need to make the more environmentally sustainable choice as well. Maybe they just need a little bit of extra money to buy the nicer option as well. So those are the three major goals of this program. And now eligibility, who's qualified for this program? So first, they have to be an APCHA deed restricted homeowner. And also after discussion, we decided to limit the program only to owners through category 1 through 3. And that is around 486 properties in the inventory right now. And the homeowner has to be in good compliance. That means up to date on HOA dues, taxes. They have to have completed their biennial affidavit. Along with this, each house is only eligible for $5,000 of assistance, no more than that. And also they have to have the up-to-date deed restriction. So if it's an owner who has a deed restriction with an expiration date on it, they're gonna have to sign a new deed restriction if they wanna qualify for this program as well. And then after some more discussion, we decided to have a type of match for this program as well. So as you can see here on the right side, depending on what category you qualify at, that is the percent of the total repair cost that you have to contribute to the final repair. And along with this, we decided that we're going to have applicants only partially requalify for this program. So we do want to make sure that we have their current category, not the category when they purchased their property, because it could be vastly different. Maybe they retired, or maybe they got a big promotion or a new job. So we're checking their income now versus when they purchased. And since we're only doing this partial requalification, it's not going to take assets into account. The main reason we did this is to just decrease the workload for when they submit their application, because otherwise qualification can be a lot of work. It might hinder some people from even applying for this program, especially the people that need it the most. And also just timeliness, so that way we can get people the funds they need on a faster basis as well. Mm-hmm.
Just for clarity on this, let's say that the person purchased a category 1 on requalification, they qualified as category 3. Does that mean that they have to pay 30% of the repairs or maintenance or the project, although they stay in category 1 housing?
So their ownership unit is still a category 1 house, but since they are technically now in the category 3 income range, they will be in the 30% range. Yeah.
It's their VIG to do it, right? I think that's their down payment, their buy-in, to be able to qualify for the grant.
Yeah.
Well, it's units that are already owned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all ownership, yep. And we should note most of the units that would qualify this program are also going to be mostly single family homes too. So just given the types of repairs, which we're going to go into in a little bit. So like an example of what this would look like. So someone requalifies at category 1, so the total repair cost is $7,000 for whatever repair they're getting. So they have to pay for at least 10% of the final repair cost, $700, but in this case, they'd still qualify for all $5,000 of assistance towards that repair. In the second case, category 2, total repair cost $4,000, 20% of that is $800, so they're only going to be eligible for $3,200 of grant assistance from the program. So to give an idea of the eligible...
On that slide for a moment, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
And I love it that you're doing these real examples. It's so helpful. My read on example 1 is that repair would not happen. You know, because actually that person is spending $2,000 to make it happen.
And that is true. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, I believe, where $5,000 is probably not a lot to cover a lot of types of repairs, but it's a starting point as well.
And thanks for providing real math and real examples.
Yeah.
And it is a pilot program, and if all of a sudden we start seeing where it's a lot of the things that come up are more than the 5,000, we might have to readdress that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Room for change and
But
alterations. Yeah.
Allison, I wouldn't say that wouldn't happen. I mean,
They still might go ahead and
they
do that.
Still, I mean, it's something they need to do, right? And $5,000 goes a long way, right? And all of a sudden changes their overall net that they would have to do by pretty significantly.
I'll keep going then. So eligible repairs. So again, all the repairs that are eligible for this program have to be essential for the health and safety of residents in the household. And this is just a list of the types of repairs that would be eligible. But at the end of the day, repairs will also have to just be determined on a case-by-case basis, because there might be an essential repair that's not exactly on this list that fits a mold. So when we accept applications, we will be accepting repairs based off the definition of essential repair, that it's essential health and safety for the household and the residents within. So last time we talked about needing a prioritization process for this as well, because just unsure how many applications we're really going to get and how that's going to stretch funding. So we talked about as staff to assign applications a priority level, and this ranges from 1, 2, and 3. 1 being that this repair is needed right now, it's not safe to live in this house, so this repair is as essential and critical as possible. Level 2 is maybe people aren't in immediate danger, but this still needs to be repaired on a as soon as possible basis. And then level 3, again, still essential repair, but it's more, it needs to be repaired on a as soon as practical basis. And that would be the priority level it's assigned. And so obviously we'll be prioritizing level 1 first, then level 2, and then level 3. If we need a tiebreaker, we could use category as well and choose the lower category applicant. Any
This kind of
questions?
feels like, I'm going to say this might not be right, but the insurance death panel's here.
Imaginary.
Because I kind of wonder about, should we really do that? I mean, if we need more funds, we should just go ask for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we would be in favor of not having to prioritize, but if I remember correctly, it was a suggestion from the board, and so, if you, it would be less work for us running the pilot if we didn't do prioritization and we used our skill and judgment, but I think there was a reflection that you wanted a bit of structure. I'd personally prefer less structure on the pilot because it would be easier for us, but,
To me, I think you should place it on speed of processing the application. Right, and get the first ones done, and then, the most
Especially
important
level
stuff.
1 is going to need funds as soon as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's all the more reason to prioritize them. But also, if you're trying to use this as a case study, then I do think creating the criteria that would, in the future, be part of the real program would be helpful for data. I think if you're gonna use your own judgment, having something on the books as to what that judgment is being based on is gonna make.
I'm nodding, Allison.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah. And definitely, I mean, we will not be throwing out any data, so that way afterwards we can come back to the board and be like, these are the applications we got, all the different priority levels, types of repairs. This is how much it would have cost to fund everybody's repairs. Maybe we can do that still.
So I withdraw my comment about prioritization. I'm very in favor of it.
I think there's still subjectivity. It's just nice to have the.
We'll have a guideline to follow when we go through applications, yeah.
Liz, sorry for my ignorance. What's the source of funding and what is the amount that is going to be in the pilot program.
That'll
Stay
be the
tuned.
last slide.
Yeah.
I saved the most fun part for last. Yeah, so we will cover that. And I mean, as a quick, we will be requesting funds from the BOCC and City Council for this program. And I'll go over that. And so application process, we're proposing we'll have a 2-week window for people to submit their applications. And we'll advertise that beforehand so people can get ready and requalify. And then we'll also have a 2-week window so then APCHA staff can go through, because we're going to have to implement these priority levels to applications, and then select and notify the grantees. And once the grantees notify APCHA the date for their repairs, we're going to be able to allocate funds. Once they do the repair, they have a time window, 60 days, to upload all their receipts, invoices, proof of repair. We'd be interested in knowing who did their repair as well. And then basically, we suspect this program will be done once funds are depleted.
I think you should shorten that window to 30 days.
For uploading?
Yeah, and just because contractors work on they're gonna bill these people and they're gonna need to be paid.
Yeah.
And they wanna be paid in net 30, probably 15 something.
Yeah, but if you look at number 3, they notified of the date of the repair is scheduled, and we will send the funds after receiving that
We
date.
were going to do it preemptively.
So,
I think we should.
yeah, so
You don't
it's
think you should do it
until
as
after they've
completed?
done the work. Some of the, I do know there's quite a few contractors out there, they at least expect some type of a deposit up front, and the
Well, you
person
can
may
do it-
not have the
No, I
money for the
agree,
deposit.
but, maybe you do it like a draw, where they come in and they get half. And stuff has to be done and they get the other half. Or some number, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about this yet, so.
Because you want it to get done.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other question that I have on this is, so roofing, could an do these have to be interior items? Could an HOA, could an HOA responsibility have all 20 owners submit an application and then try and have, $100,000 for their particular HOA?
They'll never get that much.
I mean, they could, but that's not really where we're aiming for this.
Right, I'm just,
Yeah.
it's gonna come up.
Yeah. Where everyone wants to also.
I think you should put a qualifier in there that has to be
Yeah, and because
individual owner
we
projects.
want to make it known that separate HOA outreach is already underway as well,
Yeah.
right? But I think that's a good point because, like as I said before, this probably will mostly serve single-family homeowners. Because it's probably not going to be able to go towards HOA roof, right?
So I mean, if not, then we could just simply say HOA common responsibility, or common area responsibilities are not eligible for this program.
That's probably
Yeah.
a good way to phrase it.
Yeah,
Good job, lawyer.
that's a good phrase.
Yeah, I noticed when I read through this in my notes, I put there 3 different terms. It's referred to as home improvements, it's health and safety, and then common areas. So if we can have uniformity throughout the program to just use health and safety and eliminate the common areas, and these aren't really improvements,
Yeah,
they're
no,
Yeah.
they can't,
Yeah.
home improvements can't. We had that discussion a few weeks ago too.
Definitely. So we can talk more then about when funding would go out, whether before, after, or split. And do most people think 30 days afterwards seems
I think-
reasonable?
Yeah.
Or?
I think 30 is the number because you're paying
Yeah.
a contractor, right? Somebody that did the work.
You want to.
And I don't think you should give them all the money up front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get it done with.
So maybe it's their equity, their down payment plus half or something, or plus, to get to half of the cost. So the other 20% or whatever the 40%, whatever the down payment is per category.
I think a shorter time frame would keep people focused a little more too.
Sure, yep.
Yeah, I have a concern here that if the money is given to the homeowner and the homeowner doesn't pay the contractor, then there's a mechanics lien put on the property. So I would like to see if it's possible to pay the contractor
Directly? It's another layer for
And you
these
said the
guys.
contractor remit the like what's due to the city, to this program
To APCHA?
instead of the owner? Like the owner pays the down payment up front or whatever.
Well, we're
And
gonna
then-
write a check anyway. You could write a check to the contract. I mean, like your insurance company does when you have a repair, they write it to your
Yeah.
bank and yourself. And that's how we could write the check.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these things we may be able to work out more a little bit later too, versus as long as we know we want to run the program, and then.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea
I
is
think
that
that
stuff
would be,
gets fixed.
I think that would be a good idea, just to have I mean, the contractor at least have some communication. I mean, like the thing that comes to mind is cost overruns and what happens in that instance. And I think if the contractor is maybe there's like a document or something that just kind of outlays what's going on. I mean, I think it might help sort of avoid some of those issues if the contractor understands, like, this is the funding for this and
Okay.
scope for the project, and not to I'm not saying we need to overcomplicate with specific, but just some things to think about maybe.
No, definitely. And so maybe it's owner has to pick who's
Yeah.
doing the repairs, and then
Yeah.
let us know, and then we can
I'm fine if you have the flexibility to kind of figure that out, but just things to think about.
That's a really good.
So now we're
thing
getting
to-
into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah.
But- But, owner picks the contractor for the repairs. I think there has to be some scrutiny on the cost, right?
Yeah.
So there's not abuse of, well, cost $1,000, but I got billed 4,000.
Yeah.
Right, and here's
And here, and I want that grant for that number.
$1,000, thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of preferred contractors?
We'd love to get, I mean, I
We
think
would really love to
putting
get
some
something like
in-house
that. It's
contractors
hard.
on retainer
That
to
might be
keep
an
costs.
outcome of this too.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, but keep costs for residents at
I mean, I've said that, kind of looking back at the last recession, I think we missed an opportunity. There were a lot of contractors that were, I mean, I
Clamoring
had
for
several,
jobs.
right, that were walking around and knocking on doors looking for work. Potentially that's where we're headed. I mean, that could be an opportunity for us to really make some headwinds on some of these issues.
It really is hard because we do get people asking us that all the time. And it would be nice to have preferred contractors, and it would also be nice if we knew when one project wanted to replace their roof, and they want to replace theirs as well, and economies of scale, if there's a way that we could work that out, that would be nice as well. That's where we hope to plan on getting within the next couple of years. And we have a decent preferred contractor list. Because we have people calling us all the time asking us, do you have any plumbers, any ideas of plumbers or anything? And to find one who really will work on deed restricted housing is not an easy find. And,
Well, they'll work
and
on it, but
reliable.
they're gonna charge you what
Yeah.
they're gonna charge the guy on Red Mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I've been throwing this out for years, and perhaps you guys have discussed this, but of having a crew of APCHA or city county employees that actually are licensed contractors that can do these deeds, these electrical, plumbing, construction projects, and paying them. And I know we're getting this whole thing about housing and having to hire and fire, but just finding a way to be able to cut the costs of these repairs. If we hired people, we being the collective government, you wouldn't be paying a profit to the contractor.
Right.
You would be that 10 or 15% for sure. Those are all good ideas. It's something, I mean, you got housing
How to get
stock to
started
protect,
has been the
some of
issue.
the reasons people don't fix it is they can't pay the real price or the market price.
So yeah, it's kind of the goal of this, a starting point at least, and then also we'll get an idea of how much are people paying for these repairs, and we'll be able to compare. People ask, making sure they're getting a fair price down the road too. So I took note of some of the comments you had, so that way we can incorporate that into this application process next. So funding, back to your question. So we are requesting a total of $200,000. This would provide around 40 homes with $5,000 grants to make the necessary home repairs. And so our trajectory was to request funds from both the city of Aspen and Pitkin County and split the costs. And the reason why we want to ask both entities is so that way we can serve APCHA properties outside of the Aspen urban growth boundary as well.
I would say minimum, that provides a minimum of 40 homes,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yes.
Kelly, what does your budget look like?
She's wrote her check already.
I know.
Well, this is on my board's radar for sure, and, you know, we do have money set aside for housing projects this year, but, we've requested APCHA to present this program to the BOCC, because they would like to know more about it before they write a check.
Of course.
So we're
And
getting that scheduled.
and we haven't scheduled that yet because we want to make sure first the APCHA board is all on board, and so then we can go to the next step from there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, after
We've
this, the
talked
goal
about this
today
3 or
is
4 times.
get your feedback, what else you think should change, and then also if you want me to come back to the APCHA board and have another discussion, or if you think it's ready for us to schedule with city council or the BOCC.
Well, I'm supportive of it. I think working out the funding mechanism, the funding process,
Yeah.
you know, because now we're talking about public funds here that we're going to spend.
Yep,
And we want to make sure they're applied and how we expect them to be applied.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah, anything we can do to make these kind of repairs affordable. So I'm in favor of this or any other pilot program you can come up with. You know, the funding is important. I don't know what the coffers look like at BOCC, but I have just innately an objection to grants. I would rather there be no interest loans, but a 10, 20, and 30% for the different categories. We're not talking category 1 and 2 are pretty low income people, but
That was,
Yeah, these are kind of like micro loans for the most, but they just don't have to be paid back, right? This isn't a big dollar amount. It's not going to fix a lot, but it could fix.
Can I
that
get a
one thing.
micro loan from $5,000 from your bank and not have to pay it back?
I'll charge you 12%.
I think this is a great time to go and to the elected officials and present all the work you've done, and try and get them on board. I think one thing that keeps occurring to me, and I don't know if this is a staff detail to work out or, you know, once we kind of have green lighted or have things to putz around with the other elected official boards, how do we, like, wouldn't we want to make sure, again, because we're talking about things that are pretty dire, like, wouldn't we want to make sure that the first people they would go to would be like their home insurance? Because like if you have a burst pipe or a defunct water heater, like these kind of things that I think of as being covered by insurance in emergencies, like I'd rather you be denied or like have tried and then there is still $7,000 out of pocket to pay and then come to us. But so like just have one line of like, did you go through the, you know, basic steps of other people who could cover this first?
Or maybe that's in the the repairs category, because your homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover a water heater. You know, that's a durable good. It's going to wear out, and you're
I
going to
think she's
replace
talking
it.
about if there's like if
Like
the
a
water
pipe
leaks
burst,
But
or
if it's just
damage.
an old
leaks.
water heater, that's not part of this program. We're like, what we said is like it's
I thought we had-
health and safety issue for your home. So like something went wrong, and I do think of that as being covered. Like your house flooded because of the water heater.
Water burst, maybe.
Yeah. So just something to think about, maybe on the application, not necessarily back for us, but it's just, there's other ways that people could get help in emergency situations, and I'd love for them all to be explored.
Allison,
Including
just so I'm clear on what you're saying, are Are you saying that this is not the first line of funding, that you should be looking for, the homeowner should be looking for insurance or other forms of funding before they come to APCHA for a grant?
To me, it seems like in an emergency situation, there are other, bolsters for something like that. What I'm hoping this leads to over time is some cases we've seen where someone has kind of just let something go, and it's actually not really bothered that owner as much as the next purchaser, who then comes in and sees something that they didn't let degrade, but now have to deal with, or now isn't working, or because heat went off or windows were broken, other bad things, like something that you wouldn't actually be able to ask insurance or other sources for, but will help with the upkeep of the entire program.
I think that'd be a good part of that questionnaire. Go back to the what we initially said the repairs would be, or what the eligible stuff. Yeah, the eligible repairs examples.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really read that. Can you make it bigger? Oh, there it is.
Furnace, water heater.
And yeah, I mean, that is something we could incorporate into the application, since we haven't developed the application itself yet. A statement of,
Have you checked with your insurance company?
yeah. And one other thing I think I might add to the description about this program too is actually Pitkin County does have an emergency assistance fund that allocates up to like $1,000. So for some things, people might also be able to go to that. And I talked to some folks from Pitkin County too, and they said that could probably work. Yeah.
But broadly, you guys are comfortable with us going to the elected bodies and having a chat with them and seeing what they think? Seeing nods.
Yeah.
Great.
I am, Kelly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think this is ready to move to that next step. I think my board is going to want some narratives about problems that APCHA's observed, or calls that APCHA gets, to really illustrate, in a real life setting, how this program is meaningful.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you gotten? I mean, this has been written about, I believe.
I don't think we've received any.
But I have talked to some people from CORE, and they've given me some, not as much numbers, but I would say more narratives of what's going on in some of the APCHA ownership properties.
And we wouldn't necessarily get the call at this point because the responsibility is with the owner and the HOA. So,
yeah.
But we do have some narrative we can write, Kelly, and to illustrate the problem as we see it. But another point of the pilot is seeing what the problem is. Getting some information. So that's another side of it. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
Great.
Liz. That was great.
Thanks, Liz.
And we'll be in
Thanks,
Kelly.
everyone.
We'll be in touch with you guys, and then obviously we'll get some time on the city council as well.
Yep. Take care.
And then I'm also cognizant that there are different budget cycles and whatnot, so it might be, it might be a while before, even if approved, we actually get some money because of the different budget cycles. But that's all fine. We'll get there eventually.
Call Bezos.
That's a good idea. I'll write that down.
He's not buying the Redskins. He's got money.
I cannot tell you how happy people are in Washington about that. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
The sale, or that Bezos not buying them?
He was the only uniting force in Washington was hatred of Dan Snyder. I'm not kidding.
That's great. All right, next item is the board retreat discussion.
So we want to do a board retreat to welcome our new members, and also it was something that was regularly done throughout history in APCHA, but then because of the pandemic, it hasn't happened in a while. So we're getting that cycle going again. So it would be a chance to look at strategic priorities for APCHA in the coming year. That's on the memo. That's the last point, to do some work on the work plan. I'd also like to have one session run by Tom and Diane on just the role of the board and looking a little bit at the IGA just as a refresher. But other than that, I'd like some feedback on what you guys would like to see. I don't want it to be a brainstorming session for staff, things to do. I want it to be kind of looking at strategic priorities, honing your skills. If there's a particular aspect that you've always wanted to know about, we can do a session on that. So there's a couple different ways we can go, and we have a very good presenter penciled in who's very experienced with working with non-profit and NGO boards and stuff. So I think he can get a really good discussion going. So I did write down a few things, but other than that, I'd like to listen and see what you guys have ideas rather than us just writing it all ourselves. So
I think, when you do a retreat, sometimes it's just great to have I like the planning session, come up with a 5-year plan, goals and strategies where we want to be in the next 5 years. Yeah. Right? I think we did that. Were you on the board then? We did one.
Yeah.
SARPA facilitated a pretty good discussion.
That's required in our IGA, but I don't think we're quite up yet, but it's probably time
It's
to
gotta be
start
close.
looking at it.
I think it would be useful for John and myself to have an executive session to be brought up to speed with Tom or all of the legal issues that APCHA is facing.
That's a great idea.
We could do that next board meeting.
Yeah,
I
we
think
could do
that'd
that.
be great.
Let me talk to Tom about that. That's a really good idea.
We're supposed to keep you in the dark.
It's working.
It's working, yeah.
I'm always going to make a pitch for some sort of communications session. So if you don't want it to be a, brainstorm day of, then we could be more concrete of a monthly schedule of what board members are kind of the communicators of the month and go to your coffees and HOA meetings and just getting out there more through social, through your newsletters. I think that when people say APCHA is not transparent, what they mean is I don't know how APCHA works. I just think getting ahead of that is going to be super key. We don't really talk about it in depth in board meetings.
That's a great one, Alison.
Great
Thank you.
quote.
Is there any? And we absolutely. This is not the only chance you'll have. If you have great ideas, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. Is there any particular deep dive you'd like to look into? The history of AMI or something fascinating like that.
That's always good. That's always
I
good.
hear chuckles, for example.
Didn't even hold it in.
I do feel like it's sort of we always are punting the kind of history of the capital reserves conversations and efforts.
Kelly took the words out of my mouth. I agree.
So, say that again. I wrote capital reserves, but what about it?
Cindy, we were talking about that back in Housing Frontiers days.
Yeah,
2
Yeah.
years ago.
There's a ton of history
There's been a
on
lot
that.
of work
Oh,
done
I
on
see what you
capital
mean.
reserves in 2000, 2000, I think, 2000, 2008, 2010. There's been a lot of work done. I think it would be helpful just to kind of get background on all of that.
That's
and
right, yeah.
Why didn't any of that move forward?
Oh yeah, and I thought the state government passed a law in 2007 or 8 that required HOAs to do a capital assessment, right, and then fund or assess to those needs. And then I thought maybe it was dropped, maybe it wasn't, but why wasn't that kind of pushed into here too? Because didn't we have a bunch of HOAs do reserve studies at that point?
And I'm not sure about the actual requirement and what people have to have, because just to let everybody know, it's not just deed restricted properties, HOAs, it's also the free market HOAs that are lacking greatly in
Yeah, but the
keeping
difference
up
between
to
a lot
it,
of those
but
free
yeah,
market HOAs is
Yeah.
they can write a check.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And-
difficult
yeah.
for a
Choose to do
special
that.
assessment for people in APCHA housing.
And we
Or
can.
the market will keep them from someone else from buying it if it's in disrepair, but
Right.
APCHA,
It
People
doesn't.
take it.
People still buy. We will be bringing Molly Foley-Healy back for some HOA legislation updates on May 18th. And we'll get the information out to all the HOAs, and anybody who wants to join us. We'll serve, well, it used to be easy to serve pizza because we used to be able to go to Domino's. I'm not sure what we're going to do with regards to that. But we plan on having educational seminars, hopefully twice a year, with her again. And we have the first one scheduled for May 18th, because there are some changes in the 9 governance policies. And we hope that she'll be available. She usually, for our projects and our properties up here, she gives a discount rate to do the work. And she's great in explaining things. And apparently there is also a bill that she's working on with one of the, I don't know if it's one of the representatives or in her district, that has to do with infrastructure, grants for infrastructure. So for HOAs, for deed restricted HOAs. And it's something that really will fit into really everything, hopefully with stuff that we've got. And she's plans on updating whoever shows up at that with regards to the work that they're trying to do as well. So I think that will provide some of it. But I've got a lot of stuff on what has transpired through capital reserves over the years. And I think that we can work up something that people can kind of see where we started, kind of where we kind of got bogged down, where we started back up again, and where we ended up stopping again on that.
Great. Kelly?
Is that July 19th date fixed?
It is,
No.
that is very penciled in, depending on you guys, you know. So,
Okay.
you know.
I would lobby for earlier. I will note, in case my city colleagues, it's come to my radar that the city and county are going to do a housing retreat together on the 18th.
Oh,
Mama,
that sounds like a lot of
Doesn't
housing in
mean
2 days.
No, that's fine. I'm pushing for a little bit earlier for personal reasons, but that's all. That's what I'll say. It could even be the 17th, if not the 19th, which is my birthday. And what a gift to talk about housing.
What a great
My
way.
birthday.
Excuse
And
me,
I would
Kelly,
love to spend it with
I
you
have
all.
to make sure I get your present right. Is it the 19th or 17th?
Mama.
The 17th.
Okay, got it.
I'm out of town until the 17th.
Okay.
But I'm out of town the 3rd to the 17th.
You back at work on 17th? No.
No, I'm
Okay.
flying back on the 17th.
Okay.
And I'm out of town a few days before that.
Yeah, and I'm.
It's 4th of July.
4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah, the week before is the 4th.
I don't think it's going to happen much earlier.
This might be opening up a can of worms, but might as well. It's my first meeting. I think it was 2019 or so that we did the revamping of the IGA.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted to, I thought there was a feeling that we wanted to continue that work on the IGA, and it stopped. And where the APCHA board is on that IGA, if you can dig up the minutes and recall what was going on back then. And it was
I think you really need to talk to your city manager on that, on where to go
Well,
with
yeah,
that
some of the stuff
direction.
didn't make the IG, like hiring him.
Yeah.
Hey.
The board president was supposed to be a part of it, and that
Yeah.
didn't make the IGA
Yeah.
for sure. I was the president of the board at that time.
Yeah, I remember, and I remember that chapter. But has this board had discussions about revisiting the IGA?
We haven't since that point, no, since it was signed, and we kind of moved on, trying to do our part, you know. And I think having you guys, having county, and having Kelly and Francie a part of it, I think it's great. I think it's a different board today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a storied chapter.
Untenable was a word I learned during that whole thing.
In more ways than one.
Well, this
I
is
missed that part.
this is great input on the retreat. Let me chat with the facilitator, see if there's anything else he needs, and if there are any other ideas that pop in your head, let me know. Happy to chat about it. And Kelly, it doesn't sound like earlier date is going to work.
I'm gonna make it more complicated and say I leave town on the 21st.
All right, so that might be the window. Yeah.
I will, bye.
But I could do earlier. I
I will
want,
resolve to the 19th.
I can't believe everybody's available then. That's amazing.
19th works
I'm
pretty
not looking
good.
at my calendar.
I'll have to check with friends because I get back on the 9th, so I've got a little bit.
It's gonna be an all-day thing.
We could do the 20th.
20th would work better for me.
Okay.
Would
Got a long
that be, or are you planning on being gone on the 20th, Kelly? That's a Thursday.
I'm trying to figure out how to drive 1,500 miles with my 2 children to New Jersey.
Go see your pharmacist.
Yes.
I think-
Airplane.
Sleeping
Yeah,
pills,
plane.
yes.
So I keep trying to leave earlier, and so I'd prefer as early as we can do it.
The week before is.
19th is fine for me. too.
Okay. John Ward has conceded the 19th.
No,
so-
I just, loan committee's on Wednesday, so
Yeah, okay.
I just get to skip it then.
All right, let's stick with the 19th. I don't think we can do it any earlier. Sorry, Kelly. But she definitely doesn't want it any later. Okay. Great. Okay. So that's, if you have other ideas, if not, I think that's a pretty good framework. And then I'll have a chat with John, the facilitator, about some of his favorite things as well, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Who's gonna be the facilitator?
John Doherty.
Okay.
He's
Oh,
one of the
nice.
boards. Yeah.
We like him.
Yeah, very good. He hasn't told me how much he's going to charge us, so I'm a little. I have asked him, but he hasn't told me that yet, so I need to follow up with him just to double check that.
Okay.
So you brought something up in an email. Did we want to talk about that too?
Yeah. Do you want? I didn't know if you wanted to put it on a separate agenda item. If you want to, whatever you want to do. Yeah.
We get some time now.
Yeah.
I mean,
That'd be great. Yes, so I wrote to everybody. Staff feels very strongly that going to once a month would be preferable, even if it's a longer meeting. The current cycle is very tough on us. There's only really 3 or 4 of us who work on the actual policy side. We do the meetings on Wednesday, and then by the next Monday, we're already having to work on the packet. We feel very strongly that it would actually be more productive to give us a bit more time to work on a packet for you. And as I put out in the email, there's a couple different reasons where I think we're in a different spot than we were when we were originally doing the two meetings a month. Compliance cases don't come to you directly anymore, and the IG actually says once a month. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion and see what you guys thought. And ultimately it's up to you guys, but we think we would be able to give you a better product and work on the stuff rather than work on preparing the packet if we had a monthly meeting. And like I said, if there's ever a time you want to do 2 meetings a month, we're happy to do that as well.
Which meeting a month would we cut?
Well, that's what we figure out. Yeah.
I proposed the first one.
well, I mean, I think my hesitation is, I think the meetings become longer if we do that. I mean, they become significantly longer. And then, it just makes things move slow. So we have a meeting, we have feedback, right? Understanding that if there's more time to prepare, perhaps some of that would be cut down. But if we did want to move something forward, first reading, second reading, right? It sort of drags out things. And then where we end up is kind of where we are on the retreat of trying to coordinate a dozen schedules, and it just becomes very difficult. I'd be more in favor of kind of looking at, let's not have looking at the agenda and saying, we have a light agenda, let's cancel the first meeting next month, right, and then do the, rather than just saying we're going to one. I mean, I guess that's kind of where I'm, but, feel free to jump in.
I'm kind of agnostic on it being the first meeting here and seeing what the level is. I know at a certain point, on a long meeting, my brain
Yeah.
goes brain dead. And I mean, you can only be focused for so long.
And I don't think we're talking about the marathons that you guys have sometimes, going
Thank
until
God.
10, 11, 12. That's definitely not what we're talking
But we've
about.
had 3 almost 4-hour meetings,
Yeah.
even though we've been meeting twice
Right.
a month.
Right.
That's a concern. The length of the meeting is a concern. As far as, reading through the bylaws, it's easy enough to change the bylaws, but Article 5, Section 1 says the authority shall meet twice per month. If we want to change that, may meet twice per month, must meet once per month, and just to clarify that in the bylaws and whatever the board decides, but just make it consistent with what
So
the
the
bylaws.
IGA says
Right.
The
once,
IGA
and the
says once a
bylaws
month,
says
and the
month.
bylaws say twice.
Shall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
so
must,
let's just
shall.
clean that up
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
I like, sorry, Allison.
Allison?
Thank you. I am on where Carson's at as well. But I do want to respect staff time, and I want good policy to be written. I guess my concerns are the long meeting that would happen if we go down to once a month, and I guess if that's not a given, then the less progress that we would make. But the long meeting, a lot of us are cutting time out of work, that I don't know, I could go any earlier, and I know my other board members have families that I don't know they want to go any later. So I'm not exactly sure where we would find that extra time. I also think we don't get a lot of public comment, but we should, and that once a month, that the public, it's just such little access to us and to your 3 minutes of having your voice heard. Like if you were working that day or gone that day, you wait for a whole month until your concern is brought to the board. So I'm wondering, we know once a quarter, the second meeting of the month can always be the HomeTrek update, and that could be it. We could have meetings if you need to that are convene, public comment, approve minutes, go. If you're not ready to show us the policy, but the board is here and available for the public, and it's already scheduled, so if something does come up that needs more attention, if there's an exec session, it's already there and we're not scrambling to get people to show up. And I do think just reducing the amount of time, even maybe because we had an event that I've been at since 6 a.m., but even today's 2.5 is, I don't know that I'd be able to get into sincere policy discussion at this point in a meeting moving forward. So for those reasons, I would push for twice a month.
I think, I don't know if it was John or Carson mentioned this, that maybe we could try to, on the agenda, see if we can make it fit into to one meeting, and if we can do it all in one, just say the second meeting is canceled.
I still think it's worth all of us getting on Zoom for 5 minutes and opening
No,
a comment.
I like Allison's comment, right? And the only reason I suggest first I have another meeting I could attend. But I think that's a good idea, is just, look at what, be disciplined in what our discussions are about. And if it's stuff we can move past pretty quickly, we're done in an hour, done in a half hour.
Yeah.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
We have to do just as much work for a short meeting as we do a long meeting. And sometimes it's more work for a short meeting. I just want you to know that.
Can I jump in? Could we structure, the first meeting of the month could be, review of the minutes, public comment, executive session, HomeTrek updates, and that is what gets scheduled for the first meeting of the month? And if we don't, we can do many of those things very quickly, and then the second meeting of the month is the policy heavy conversations. So then I don't know if that makes doing the memos and the packets a little more, much more streamlined if we just limit what the content is on that first meeting.
Who, is it Matthew and Carson that set the agenda? How's the agenda set?
Yeah, typically staff will propose it and we'll just propose an agenda. And if there's things that specifically need to be added, then I'll make that request. But I would say for the most part, staff recommends the agenda.
And what's your reaction to Kelly's suggestion that you have the first meeting, public comments, executive, load up on the first one to try to eliminate the second one? Is that what you were going with?
No,
that?
I don't know that she's saying. I don't know
Opposite of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think she was
I'm
saying.
saying the first meeting is like the
Right.
housekeeping and the stuff that doesn't require a policy intense memo to us. So the
Right.
administrative stuff that we do.
So you can have a pretty set agenda.
Right, fairly set and
And I think that
quick.
still allows each staff member to have a one meeting a month, basically. If you're just structuring it that kind of like the Liz Bethany side of stuff is the second, and Andrew Cindy's side of stuff is the first. I think there are ways to ease staff time without eliminating the work that we're doing.
I think it's a good idea.
We
Thoughts?
can do some more.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to do some more thinking internally, but yeah. I'm not getting a burning desire to go to one meeting, but that's fine. We wanted to talk about it. Okay. But I'm also hearing that, we shouldn't feel as much pressure to fill the full amount of time twice a month. So
Right.
if there are some shorter meetings, that's just fine.
I think if we have an hour meeting, great.
Okay.
15
That's
minutes
very-
is great, too.
That's very
Yeah.
helpful. I mean, that's
15
Well, I
helpful.
mean, these guys are the ones that have the real meetings, so if
Right.
some of it, if they're
Sometimes
concerned
we
about
have
making
really
sure.
short ones, though.
Really?
Yeah,
Not often.
not often.
Get Bob Bowden in there, we'll keep him nice and tight.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'll
Anything?
move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
May I second that?
Second from Ward. And it's a roll call vote.
Who made the motion?
John?
John.
Ward.
John Ward. And then
Ward.
Ward.
Who seconded it?
Ward.
Hollenstein.
Okay, so John Ward,
Yes.
Carson.
Yes.
Oh, you're not. Ward. Howenstein.
Yes.
Kelly.
That was a yes.
And Allison.
Sorry, yes.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
You can
Adjourned
call me the Big
6:21.
Bopper or something from now on, I'm okay with that.